Vai aparecer a tela. Se aparecer a tela, a gente não vê.
It's my pleasure to introduce Professor Hassan, who has earned his PhD in comparative politics at Cairo University and Maryland University. He was a member of the advisory board of the Swedish Network of Peace, Conflict and Development. In 1999, Professor Hassan was granted the Egyptian State Award in Political Science for his book issued in the African Political Systems. He is a co-chair of RC44, Security, Conflict and Democratization at IPSA. He served as the director of UNESCO, Human Rights Chair, located in Jordan, and he participated in many regional and international conferences. He was a visiting professor in Arab and European universities, and he's serving as the country expert on Comoros, thank you so much, Tanzania for Varieties of Democracy in the University of Gotemburgo. Thank you so much. It's the second time that he has been here with us. It's an honor to have him. And also, Professor Gladys, I would also like to introduce her. She is from the National University of Serbia, and she's a partner of ours at NEIBA. And this partnership has lasted long, I think for 20 years, 10 years.
From the very beginning.
From the very beginning. And it's not very common to have her here physically, so thank you so much for being here with us. So we have arranged that Professor Hassan will speak for 30 minutes. He will deliver his talk for 30 minutes. Professor Gladys and I will comment on it, and then we will open to questions. If you want to put your question in Portuguese, we can translate it for you. But as you are master's degree students, I encourage you to ask in English, okay? So without further ado, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Professor Leila. I'm very delighted to be here for the second time. But it's so special for me to be in Rio for the second time. I have my best friend, Professor Gladys, who I met more than 20 years ago, working on the South-South Cooperation Program. So we met either here in Brazil or Argentina, Africa, or even Europe or Asia. So many ways that connect the South-South cooperation. And I'm thankful to Professor Gogo for inviting me for the second time. Also to just make it a brainstorming for ideas. And I think that everybody of us interested in the study of international relations or history, whatever, you will easily realize that we are in a state of transition. And I think this is a major, or the second time, that the world order sees such dramatic transition. So the first moment it was in the post-World War II, where you have the transition of leadership from Britain to the United States. So what is going on? Everybody is talking about Trump or new Trumpism. Is it a kind of ideology? Or in the United States we call it doctrine. Is it a doctrine like Monroe, like the other doctrine, Carter doctrine, whatever? Some people say, no, it is not a kind of ideology. But what is actually Trumpism and its impact on the world order. Yes, as I say, we are in a transition from, a unipolar system where you have a hegemon state, where the United States is a hegemon, and then at another world order. But what type of world order? This is my second question here. What type of it? Is it no order? Is it what is it? So if you look at the content, these are the questions I'm trying to ask. So what really happened? What is new Trumpism? What are the consequences of the Trumpism? Is it a disorder or no order? Sometimes they say there's a difference between disorder and no order. It could be something yet need to be shaped. And the third, it's about, look, I'm not sure if you are from the same background, but if you are coming from IR, international relations, you know that. In the United States foreign policy, you have two main currents. One is isolationist, and the other one is interventionist. So, do we have the same isolationists like Monroe in the early 19th century? It's repeated with Trump. So it is not a kind of difference if you look at the history of US foreign policy. And my last question, if we have some time, what does this mean to Africa? So this is my area of specialization, Africa, but I mean the global south. We have no leader. This is an opportunity and a challenge at the same time. So which country or a group of countries they can step forward in order to fill the vacuum in the international stage? Is it China? Is it Russia? Is it Brazil? Or all of them under the BRICS umbrella, BRICS Plus? So whoever is going to step forward and to fill the vacuum of world leadership. These are in a very quick, the main questions I'm going to elaborate in this presentation. If we look at, just to have an idea, that the world we live there, all of us, of course, we are the same, from the same generation. And in the post-World War II, it was a liberal world led by the Western, under the leadership, Western power, under the leadership of the United States. So we moved from a bipolar system where you have USSR and US dominating, and then you have all the institutions in the world stage built according to the liberal world, to the liberal values and ideas. Of course, that the United Nations itself, talking about multilateralism, the GATT, or the NATO itself. You see, two important things happened in post-1949. Number one, that the Britain withdrew from the Middle East. And the Middle East at that time is very important because you have the Suez Canal. So he's going to take care of it. And the rise of communism, and the two countries were threatened too much, was Turkey and Greece. This is why the UK, right away, they went to the Washington, D.C., and they asked them to fill the vacuum. So they surrendered the leadership from Britain to United States. This is a major moment in the Western world order led by liberal values. So what has happened, as you can see, moving from this in 1991. So the world has been changing dramatically one more time because it was, you see, the USSR is gone, and now you have only one leader, the international stage. It was the United States. Took the leadership. And if you remember, George Bush, the father, he elaborated the New World Order. It is the unipolar moment in the world at that time. And it was a Gulf War, who, I think it was a kind of a manifestation of that you have a hegemon, one country dominating, what they call it at that time, it is a rules-based international system. That you have some kind like responsibility to protect, you have to ensure the promotion of democracy and human rights. This is a triumph. This is a triumph of the Western liberal values at that time. But it is not that too much. It took like 1 decade. And then you have the war in terror. So the war in terror in 2001, the invasion of Iraq in 2003. So you are against these rules that you settle in the unipolar system. In the, what we call it, the Arab Spring. In 2011, in my country, in Egypt, Tunisia, the result of the so-called Arab Spring is the rise of authoritarian regime. So it is not anymore the promotion of democracy and the human rights. And step by step, the American withdrew. They withdrew from Iraq, they withdrew from Syria, they withdrew from Afghanistan. So it's not Trump. The process itself is started with Barack Obama and the successor in the White House. So that is the problem of what we can call it the post-West world, that it has seen the rise of China, the rise of Brazil, or what we can see now with the umbrella of the BRICS. So the withdrawal of, as you can see, of the United States from its leadership role and the rise of what we can call the middle power in the international. So some people say, oh, we have what we can call it the disorder. So what are the things that we need to think about? And during the unipolar period, so after the collapse of the Soviet Union, you have new collective security. One of the main principles at that time is the responsibility to protect. But responsibility to protect was a colonial kind of interpretation. You can see how they utilize the concept to achieve some geopolitical purposes. Why they didn't intervene in Rwanda in 1994, where you have 800,000 people got killed in Rwanda, Africa, without any intervention from the United States, from the United Nations, in Sudan. They delayed action after what has happened in Darfur in 2003. Why they intervened in Libya and removed Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, and why they didn't interfere in Sudan? 2 years now, we have a war, maybe more catastrophic than Gaza, but nobody talking about Sudan. This is about the coloniality of the principles laid by the American and the Western by the so-called rules-based world order. So actually, many writers, they said, we have disorder, not world order. What are the factors, if, let us say, why this happened? Why this change happened? We have many reasons for that. If you can see the resources, it is not equally distributed between states. You have rising power, you have diminishing power, even at the regional level. So you can see the rise of the Gulf state, and you see the old traditional leaders in the area like Egypt or Iraq or Algeria, they are falling, or they are not taking their traditional rules. So there is a kind of disparity in the allocation of resources, and of course, this is a reason for conflict. You can see also these rules that laid the foundation for multilateralism in international relations. So it was not working anymore. So you have many cases that the United States and the West turned a blind eye. They ignored this multilateral principle, and they invaded Iraq, for example, in 2003, without any authorization from the United Nations. So many cases where you have, wars, regional wars, without any application of the international law, even we can call it humanitarian intervention law. If you are teaching the humanitarian intervention, I feel shy because it is not applicable anymore. So where is the humanitarian intervention in the world order? One of the scary things is that you have the rise of non-state actors. So it's non-state actors, you can see Hezbollah in Iran, or the Houthi people in Yemen, or whatsoever in Africa, in many cases, even the terrorist organization. So Al-Qaeda, Daesh, Boko Haram in Africa, they are international actors. But how you can deal with these non-state actors? Another aspect in the international forum is the rise of nationalism and populism. And you can see now the Trumpism itself is part of this trend, where you have the rule of identity in international relations, the rightist wing. So this is the source of disparity, of conflict in the international system. So if we have all of these factors together, what we are getting at, so this is, so some people say we have what we can call it G0. So you have group, this is Ian Raymer, who coined this concept. We used to have group of 7, right? Or if you add the Russia, it is group of 8. You have group of 20, and you add African Union last year, 2023, they added African Union, it became 21. So even if we have all these groups, there is no leader. So the idea of G0 is that the world order lacks leadership. There is no leader. The United States took a step backward. It became more isolationist, as I'm going to just in a minute. And no country stepped forward in order to fill the vacuum. So the idea here is no leadership. So the United States, not anymore a world leader. If you look at Africa, you have a war in Sudan, you have a war in DRC, in East Congo. It's the war in Gaza. Where is the United States? Where is the idea of exceptionalism? That the United States act as and impose what they consider Pax Americana. Pax Americana, that the term that the United States is a world power. So this is the idea of G7. So another opinion saying, oh, we can have a concert. It's like the concert of Europe. If you go to history again, you know, it's important. Where you have the dominant country in Europe at the 19th century, they came together. They have differences, but they say, oh, we need to manage, we need to mitigate this kind of conflict between us and keep the order. So the idea is how to keep the order. So now they are taking up and thinking about revise the idea of the concept of Europe to have a concept of a new world order, where you have countries like China, Russia, US, European Union, maybe Brazil, or even some groups like the BRICS come together and say, let us maintain the sovereignty and the independence of the participant state. That this is the order, to maintain the order. So instead of no order or G0, so we can have the world order. So anyway, so I'm going to wrap up what I'm saying now. The main conclusion of looking at the world is changing. Nobody. The world is changing. This is a fact. What type of world that we are living in? This is a question. So we are hitting at something not yet, concrete. So is it group G0? Is it bipolar? Is it multipolar? Multipolarity or not? So the fact is, we are moving from unipolarity to something else. Is it multipolarity? Is it China, a rising power, can say no to the United States or not? This is actually just very brief about what is the world order, or what is the transformation. If we can move to the second part of my presentation, it's about Trumpism. Yes, what is happening in the United States? Oh, it's a dramatic change. Is this permanent? So yeah, some people say it is. Yeah, it is. I'm not sure if you are aware about the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation, they wrote the blueprint of Ronald Reagan, the Republican Party, and they made it the program of United States in 2025, which is the same blueprint of Donald Trump. So there is a kind of ideas behind Trumpism. So here the thinking is Trump will bypass Trump himself and will stay as a kind of principle in the United States of America. What does this mean? It means, again, coming back to isolation policy. America is blessed. It is protected by nature. It is far away. It is between two oceans. Who dare to attack America? So they have this idea and they say, well, we can build our empire. We can extend. We can annex Canada or take in a Greenland. Why not? Because we are the most powerful. But we don't care about the others. This is the idea when the previous Monroe Doctrine, they said it was the ancient one, as those of you are interested in history. Latin America. It was about Latin America here. The American came in the middle and said to the European power, there is no more colonies in Latin America. No more colonies. This is not your interest. This is ours. And in return, America will not interfere in Europe. This is the idea of isolation. So if you want to understand what is Trump doing, is he going back to the same new isolations. But the new isolation, it comes with protectionism. This is the true liberal, conservative one. Protectionism means, as you can see, how to protect, to impose tariffs. And this is why one of the main issues that we are on the verge of the world global war, trade war, now, because of his new tariffs. All countries affected by his policy. So that is against also immigration. So that because the conservative is believing in the superiority of the Anglo-Saxon, so that he is aware of how to maintain the purity of the cultural homogeneity of the United States. It is not strange that he is thinking about making English as official language in the United States. You see that? So all these ideas are coming together and forming what we can call it Trumpism. I'm teaching how many years? 40 years. It's a long time. So when I teach, always I say Europe is the first priority to the United States. My area, the Middle East, is the second. Even it has Israel, but it is the second in the ladder of priority of the United States. Yeah, because as I said, in the post-Cold War, it was the leadership. The United States took the responsibilities to provide the security umbrella for its allies, and they formed the NATO. And according to term 5 in the NATO agreement, they have the what they call it, security. If one attack, it could be attacked for every country in the NATO. This is not the case anymore. When Trump came, he said, no, Europe should pay, and we don't take the responsibility of providing security for Europe. And he even allied himself to Russia, not to Europe. And this is a big change. The U.S. relation is strained for the first time, and they are not alone anymore. And the rise of Russia, you have China, you have Russia at the same time. They can provide an alternative for the American withdrawal. So if you can see the impact or the consequence, one of the big questions here is the question. Is this one a trend, will prevail, or it will be reversed by those who come after Trump? As I said, of course, Trumpism maybe is not Trump himself. It is an attitude within the Republican Party that could be, maintained and continue in American foreign policy, and it couldn't be reversed. And we have to be really for that. We have been. I think the idea of the consequence regarding the Ukraine war very clear, because he said, if I were there, would it happen? He took the side of Putin. He left to Europe. Yes, all these are very clear to us. But because of the time constraint, I'm not sure how much time. That's okay. Yeah, because I need to dedicate some to how to deal with this and with focus more on Africa or the global south. What to do? I'm not sure the organization of this. Because anyway, this is an end of hegemony. The United States is not a leader in the world order anymore. So it is many countries, they say, many writers, they say the West, the post-West world, that is us. The idea of dominating the liberal arts, so we can see alternative. We can see the Chinese, we can see the Brazilian, we can see even regional power. If you are in the Middle East, Turkey is taking the lead and having some regional orders like the crisis in Syria. Or you have Sudan. Who's active in Sudan now? It is not America, it is not the United Nations or African Union. It is the Saudi or the Egyptian. So you have the rise, even in the DRC. You have Rwanda, rising as a regional power. So they left a room for those regional powers to rise up and to take care of their region. So let us say what to do. What does this mean to Africa, or to the global south? It is a challenge and opportunity. You see, why Africa? Africa being marginalized the whole history. There are two ways in order to understand the agency of Africa in the international system. There are two books. You need to read them. This is my advice if you are interested in this. The first one is Walter Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. It was African, were uprooted from their lands, taken to the New World in order to achieve all these development, and even in the Industrial Revolution. So they paid the price, and the result was the underdevelopment of Africa. This is the narrative given to us by Walter Rodney. The second book is the great Mwalimu Ali Mazrui. If you are interested in the Africans series produced by the BBC in the 80s, the Africans, the tribal heritage. Ali Mazrui gives the opposite side. What already said, how Europe underdeveloped Africa, but Ali Mazrui said how Africa developed Europe. You see the opposite side. From the slave ship, this is a very nice article, you can find it. From the slave ship to the spaceship. This is the role of Africa in developing the Western countries. So this is a narrative that Africa was not there. Africa was a book hole in the history of Trevor, the great Oxford historian. He said Africa has no history. It is the history of Europeans who came to Africa. This narrative, actually, it should be reversed. And this is a time for Africa to reverse this narrative and to take action. Not to take inside. If we say to leave the United States and to go to China, that means you changed a Western master with an Eastern master. If you look at the idea of the world system in the Chinese philosophy, you need to be aware of it, even within the BRICS and the rising of the global south. The Chinese believe in the Confucius, and that the world is centered based on their own philosophy. So they have the leadership, the natural leadership. So actually, this is a kind of centrism. If you change the Western centrism, the Eurocentrism, you have Eastern centrism. And then you have this kind of division between Russia and China. So what to do? So that the idea here, in order for Africa to rise up, it is a pan-African. It is a pan-African attitude to build itself, to enhance its negotiating power. Look at Africa. It composed of how many African countries now? Anyone? How many African countries? 50, 54. According to the United Nations, it is 54 African countries. According to African Union, it is 55. 55 if we include the Sahrawi Arab countries between Maghreb and Morocco and Algeria. But you see, there is a voting bloc in the United States. So they have a political strategic power. They have rare natural resources. You see now, the idea between the Ukraine and the United States about the rare resources, natural resources, minerals. Africa has more than 30% of the world's rare minerals. Bauxite, cobalt, all these are in Africa. And there is a conflict between China and the United States and the other in order to exploit these minerals. So you have this. So this is one, how to make it a sovereign idea that that Africa control its rare minerals and to make decisions. You need to enhance intra-state trade. You look at who are the main partners with Africa? China, the first partner, the European Union, the United States, but they have inter-state trade that Morocco trade with Algeria, or Egypt with Sudan, or with Kenya, Ethiopia. No. So the idea is outside. So that is, in spite of that, we have the continental African trade. So you need to enhance this capacity of Africa integration. So how effective is the peace and security architecture in Africa? We have African Union, right? We have peace and security architecture, like the security, the peace and security at the United Nations. We have one at the African Union. But the problem always with funding. With funding. Who controls the funds? It is not the African. It is the European Union, it is the American, it is so external party who fund these. So actually Africa needs to take a step forward in order to enhance this integration and the continental work in order to enhance its agency in the international relations. So, how to manage the aid and debt in Africa. This is another issue also. Africa being affected by Trump in many ways. Number one, he stopped the aid. USA, of course, because of one of his the first executive order he signed, he stopped the aid with South Africa. And South Africa is a leading economy in Africa, and it will affect, of course, in the short run, all these, I think it will affect many African countries. One of the things also is the AGWA, which is that the United States support some African product to go to the American market. I think he's not ready to renew it because it's due in 2025. His mentality is leaving any multilateral agreement and to make it bilateral. He's making deals. So I think Trump's mentality is against any multilateral agreement with Africa. One of the major issues is climate change. Africa is hit by climate change. You have many conflicts in Africa because of climate change. One of my research is how to find a relation between climate change and terrorism. There is no direct relationship, but it is there. When you have people fighting together because of the rare resources in the Sahel or in the Horn of Africa. Trump considers this as a hoax. This is linked to climate change. So when you look at climate change and the green policies, this needs a kind of collaborative effort. It goes beyond the capacity of the individual state. So it will be a challenge for Africa in this area. So how to deal with all these challenges in order to make it, let us say, potential. How to make all these challenges a potential. I remember the last time, and this is the last observation in my presentation. I remember I made it here. I'm not sure if it's the same room or another room. It is Afro-Topic. Very optimistic future for Africa. There is a futurology, looking how bright is the future. You have always two visions for the future. One is pessimistic, promoted by the Western all the time. Africa is underdeveloped. Africa is plagued with diseases, with conflict. And I said, how many conflicts that we have in Africa? Is it 5, 6? Yeah. But they promote it as everywhere in Africa you have conflict. We have 55 countries in Africa, and if you have civil war in 5, it's okay. This is natural. But you have many success stories. You have Ghana as a success story. You have Kenya in this AI and the mobile banking. Oh, it's taking a lead in Kenya, but nobody talking about all these success stories in Africa. So the other one is Afro-Topic. Africa has all the potential to reshape the world order and to regain its agency in the world order by, of course, avoiding all these, what we call it, the past mistakes. I still remember when I was at your age, I read a very nice piece by a socialist writer, French writer, Roland Dumont, the false state in Africa. That every time you start, but in the wrong direction, you don't repeat these false states again, and I think will be on the right path. We rise up, stand, and under the global south, under this pan-Africanism, we can have our say in the new world. I'm going to stop here.
Many things, and you know, I need a paper and a pen just to write down, so I wrote some ideas on my cell phone, but it's not enough. But it's quite an interesting brainstorming that brought up some ideas. Have you ever seen a Japanese movie called Rashomon from Kurosawa? I recommend, strongly recommend that movie. It's from 1951 or around. What's the story of Rashomon? It's the value of different narratives. And here comes the main idea of what is a narrative. In the film Rashomon, it was in Japan in the 17th or 15th century, and a crime was committed. And after some time, all the crime was judged, and the different witnesses spoke about their visions of the crime. And even the person who was killed spoke through some particular image. And all were different narratives. So it's quite interesting to listen to Hamdy. And yesterday we talked a while with Hamdy and Hugo, and the idea came that being Egyptian and living in the Emirates helps us to think differently to a certain extent of how we think here from, even me in Argentina, from the bottom of the world. So it's quite different, even though we can have the same feelings and perceptions, the narratives are somewhat different. And it's very interesting because in a changing world, we need to listen to all narratives. Everything could be possible. Everything is possible. Because, for example, Trump is not a result of Trump itself. Trump is a result of certain underlying current that's been growing in the States. And I was thinking of the international order from the 1950s onwards. And there were some, during the whole, I'm also teaching international relations for 50 years. 50 years, I'm 74. I'm 74, and I've been teaching IR for 50 years. And so, it's quite interesting how the perceptions of the different, how you call it, I'm thinking of the English word, temblores, or in Portuguese, temblores, earthquakes. I mean, the thought of IR, in the 70s, there was the first crisis of how you think IR. Because of the DANT, because of the agreements between the US and the discussion over hegemony, etc. So during the whole evolution of the post-Second World War order, we've been having some earthquakes, small or some tsunamis, it depends. We had earthquakes, tsunamis. One was in the 70s, the other was in the early 90s when the Soviet Union collapsed. Then we had another, as as Hamdy mentioned, with the Twin Towers in 2001, then with the Arab Revolution. So we've been having different periods of earthquakes that pushed us to think that what was really all certainties were not certainties. That we have to begin rethinking. And I'm thinking of this this important and always quoted Gramsci's words, that the old is not dying and the new is still being born. And this is what's going on now. And this is what Hamdy reminds us, that we have to rethink that all certainties are being discussed again. And there is a saying in Argentina that some similar, I'm going to translate it in English, but there should be, of course, an English expression, that when the river, it's troubled waters in the river, fishermen could fish better. I'm just translating, there should be one in Portuguese and one in English to express these ideas. And this is a certain thing that Hamdy is pointing us. Global South has now new possibilities because things are in turmoil. So we have to try to think differently, abandon the old narratives, listen to different narratives. Of course, Chinese vision of the world. If we talk with Chinese or with the Gulf states or with, it's quite different from what we are accustomed to think. So I think one observation or one advice that I'm doing to myself, and maybe I could bring to you, is just listen all narratives and try to discuss and think differently, because it's the only, and just also get out of the box in the sense of abandon traditional versions and traditional narratives we are so much accustomed to listen with. Even, I have to say, when you go to Africa, I've been to Africa several times, you have to abandon certain certainties, because things are different, because people think different. But also undoubtedly, and this is a question I want to pose to you, because African structure has some vices brought by colonialism. So it's like a building that has some vices in the structure. So how can you in this scenery of turmoil, how can you rebuild, changing certain structures that have vices? Because I fully agree that Africa is the future, that African resources are fantastic. But sometimes in Argentina we say that the problem of Argentina is Argentinians, not the country. And sometimes I'm wondering, I'm not sure, whether in Latin America, in Africa, in the South, because it's very difficult to change our underdeveloped mind, our mind of dependency, and change patterns of thought, and change narratives. Because sometimes we are biased by only one dominant narrative. Like in the 90s. In the 90s there was the dominant speech. The dominant speech was neoliberalism and market and democracy. Well, now there's no speech because we have lost guides. we have lost leaders. So it's a time to create a new speech. But how could we create a new speech? With some natural vices we do have. That's my main doubt. But we have to do something. And the Global South is our place.
So, want to answer first? Yeah. Just a quick comment. She posed one question, I will pose another. And
Sorry,
then
I went too long, but I think I needed to.
Yeah.
But anyway, I fully agree with you that decoloniality, I think decoloniality speech is mainly started in Latin America. And then it went to Africa, especially in 2015, when the Syrians in South Africa rise up and they destroy the Cecil Rhodes statue, because Cecil Rhodes is a symbol of colonialism. So decoloniality of minds, this is the first step in order to think in the right direction. So decoloniality, I think in your perspective, you need to have a decolonial approach. And the idea of your methodology, your theoretical narrative is important, because many of these concepts we count on in the Western framework. Actually, it's embedded within Europe circuit. When you come to say ethnic conflict, it is you have an image that the Africans fight each other. Why they are fighting each other? It is not the Tutsi and the Hutu. They were not created as cats and the dogs fighting each other. No, this is not the case. They lived with each other before colonialism. So you have the colonial impact. So this is the second idea. It's what to do with the heritage. So the main cause of all diseases in Africa now is the colonial state. The state itself, the state is alien. So if you look at Sudan, what is the state inherited by the colonial power in Sudan? It doesn't fit. The Sudanese, where they have diversity, they have Arabs, non-Arabs, they have Africans, they have farmers, they have herders. How you bring all these together? It is not the Western state that we are teaching in political science based on territory, population, and government. There is no territory in Africa. So the herders move from one place to another. It is dynamic. But when you come and say, in the Sahel, this is Chad, and this is Niger, and this is Cameroon. But the people move freely from one place to another. So you impose a structure alien to the people. How come my country in Egypt and Sudan, you have people in the middle that are Nubian between Sudan and Egypt. So it happens they are in Egypt. But the Sudanese say, oh, they are Sudanese. But before colonialism, there is no Egypt and there is no Sudan. They are one country. So the idea of the territorial state, it doesn't work in Africa. So we need to come and to think out of the box how to build a new nation, not based on nationality. So if you are in Sudan and you are Nubian, you say you are an Arab, you are a Muslim. No, it is not an Arab. I'm a Dinka. So how you consider me as while in Darfur, he's a Darfurian, but he's not an Arab. But how you come to say, oh, Sudan is an Arab country. So Sudan is not an Arab country. So we need to move from the nation state according to the European definition and to have a state based on equal citizenship. So you are equal. You are, whether you are from any tribe, you are equal. So based on equal citizenship. This is what we need to do, moving. So the idea of the state itself, it moved from the Westphalian definition of the state to nation state, now to another definition based on equal citizenship. This is what we need to have. So we need to negotiate a new basis for African state. I think this is a main challenge in Africa nowadays. So decoloniality, this is number one. Number two, we looking at the state itself. The state, I wrote a book in Arabic, unfortunately, because the name of the book is Impossible State in Africa. So it is impossible state.
Could we use AI to translate?
You can do it.
Maybe.
But this is what I'm saying, but that you have, the state in Africa is like one who's building a house, but work in progress. Work in progress, so you keep working in it, but it is not done yet.
So, just a quick comment, 50 years of experience, 50, 40, 15, so just quick as compared to my experience. Well, I think you have made a very good job in showing how this so-called rules-based order has never been actually a rules-based order, right? It was, the rules only work for the hegemon, and when the hegemon wanted them to work, right? And I think you made a very good job in showing how this system, this order, is cracked from the beginning, and you showed many examples. So from the global south, we have seen it long before it actually cracked, because we could ourselves feel the cracks, right? You mentioned Iraq, for instance. So it's not that Trumpism is showing nowadays that the liberal order is ruined, is hampered. It's that it's from the beginning it's being ruined, right? It only worked sometimes for some people, and the global south suffered from it, right? So I love that. So I'm in tune with the diagnosis. What I'm not really convinced is that we have the leeway to change it, right? And this comes from a realist perspective. I'm actually afraid that instead of we are together when we criticize the liberal order, right? And it's cynicism, right? But the solutions, I'm not sure about it, right? When you say that we have agency, I'm actually thinking that maybe we are back to the past. So liberalism was born in its optimism and its idea of progress. And I think we are together there. But probably, and most, we are going to face an old world of spheres of influence. If so, and that would be a realist understanding of this new order, right? Instead of unipolarity, or instead of hegemony, it can be that a solution is not a concert in the terms that the European did, because Europeans agreed on some rules that served for themselves. The probability that the new global powers will agree on new rules and make a concert themselves is very low. So if so, it's probable that opposition will be the new order, spheres of influence. And if so, our ability to choose will diminish, not increase. For instance, in the case of Latin America, I've been saying this for a while, we have invested for a long time in South-South relations, especially related to the Labor Party in Brazil, South-South partnership, and in not taking sides. So having good relations with China, having good relations with the United States, right? And taking advantage of the best those relations can give to us, right? But I fear that the leeway to choose may diminish instead of increase in a new world of sphere of influence, right? So going back to the past, and I fear that African states, Latin American states, we have less leeway to choose in this new world. So my question to you is, what gives you optimism that we will have more agency and this new world is possible? I would like to agree with you, so convince me.
Thank you very much. I'm optimistic by nature, but anyway, if we combine realism with liberalism, and there is no difference in security. Security is a concern. And the metaphor I'm always telling my students, in realism, the world is like a jungle. We are living in a jungle, so there is no rules at all. So the main concern for any individual, it's a self-help. So I have to count on myself in order to survive. This is what we have now in the world according to realism. But when you come to liberalism, and instead we are living in a jungle, we are living in a zoo. So a zoo, that means you have cooperation, you have multilateralism. So actually we bring both of them together in the issue of security. So whether you are a liberal or a realist, what do you need? You need to observe to maintain your security. So look at us in the global south. So we need to count on ourselves. So the best way is to empower yourself, use your own resources in the right way. So if all these, I'll give you two examples. Why my country, Egypt, in conflict with Ethiopia? Both of them, they are in BRICS. And the Nile water is flowing thousands of years. Why you have this dispute? So if you rise up to the moment and you think about the regional cooperation and have to form a new alliance, I think this is the prospects for the future. This is what makes you me. Look, if you look at the African Union and the continental trade area, it's the second to the World Trade Organization. Africa has a lot of potentiality, but this is based on regional and continental cooperation. So I'm not saying that all of us will be the same like or one size fits all, but in the issue of security, you need Ghana, come with Egypt, with Ethiopia, with South Africa, together to have their own voice here in the international. This is how to enhance the potentiality of Africa. This is the essence of Afrotopia. Afrotopia doesn't mean that you have a clear way to the future. You have a lot of challenges, but you have to overcome. You have to have the will, the political will, in order to overcome these challenges.
So I'd like to open for questions from the audience. Does anyone want to pose a question? Say your name, and your question.
Julia, and I actually have 15. I'm thinking about a question, but I'm not really sure if it goes somewhere correctly. But as we see in the past days, there has been a massive tariffs and taxes announced. And at the same time, I observed during the beginning, especially of Trump's that we had a movement on trying to get the Chinese influence a little bit further than from south, from this global south, to Latin America and Africa. And I would like to know what do you think maybe the next steps, considering that now we have this nexus that helps South, global South gets a more open ways to China and commerce with China, but at the same time, how do you think United States will turn around the situation that it doesn't really want the global South to align with China?
Okay, but you are asking about the new tariffs and its impact and the relation to China, right? So just to remember, because I don't have, okay, I got you. I got you because I have one slide on the tariffs, but I carry that.
We have collected 2 more questions and then we answer it. Are there 2 more questions?
No, that's the same, I forgot them.
My name is Vinicius, and I organize one meeting. Glad was talking about narratives, and I think one narrative of our time is to democracy is being disrupted, the world is ending, and some authors call this postmodernity.
Just a second. You want to write?
Some authors call this postmodernity. So all that we think all narratives of modernity are being destroyed, right? And as Laila said, she thinks that we are going back to the past. That all that modernity construct is being destroyed in some way. The idea of progress too, I think this. And my question is, what is the role of religion in this new world that we are facing?
The rule of
Religion.
Sorry, can we borrow a paper from one of you so that we could write?
Yeah.
Small. Yes, please. We are all generation.
There's one pen for everybody's one else. A pen.
It's here, it's here.
So are there any more questions? Please. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Professor, thanks for the lecture. My name is Jonathan. I am a PhD student here. And I would like to make one question. First of all, I see some revolutionary movements in Africa, like Burkina Faso, and as an Egyptian expert, I want to know how do you see that those movements of nationalizing uranium mines and other things like maybe an Ethiopian spirit that no longer get a calling. And the second one, if I can, is how do you see the Belt and Road Initiative in Africa? How the perception of Africans about this new Silk Road? And that's it. Thanks.
We are in the first question, the verge of the global framework and the structure. I think every country is affected. My country even was 10% more on Egypt, so this is a list. But anyway, it will, my perspective, it will lead to the declining role of the United States in the long run. And it will affect the US dollar. It will lead to the rise of inflation and the retreat of the US dollar. What is the possibility of having an alternative? I give you a very practical example. Egypt has deficit. We don't have hard currency. We don't have enough dollars. And Kenya has the same problem with enough US dollar. We buy from Kenya tea. The famous product in Kenya is Kenyan tea, one of the famous. If you are a fan of tea like Brazilian coffee, we have the Kenyan tea, we have the Ethiopian coffee. Maybe competing with the Brazilian in Africa and the Middle East. Okay, so how to trade tea with other products from Egypt? They came together under these breaks and they say, all right, we can trade off. We use a partner system, the old traditional one. We give you tea, and you give us in return some other product. So there is always, if you think out of the box, you can enhance the power of these global souths, and of course China is here, is taking the lead in the BRICS. I'm not saying China doesn't have any geopolitical consideration. Of course it has, but we can use this as a window for change to go from this monopoly of dollarization in the international system. This is actually, you need to have some kind of thinking, new thinking out of the box. And what I just said regarding this small example between Egypt and Kenya is another. You can use local currency. That has happened that between India, United Arab Emirates, they use in the exchange of local currency instead of the dollar. In order to dismantle, let me be very realistic, dollarization is some way or another impossible, but you can turn around the dollarization by inventing new ways. The new bank of the BRICS is not going to replace, because the money that is starting with is very limited, as it's not going to replace Zayed, for example. So, but we still have these windows of hope. If we have the will in the global south, so we can have a difference. What is the second one? You are talking about religion. The narrative and religion. There is a famous Nigerian writer, Adichie, The Danger of the Single Story. This is very nice. She's a writer, and you have always one narrative dominating the speech. So in order to go beyond this, we have to have our own narrative, our own, our own speech. For example, they say we are in Africa in a tropical weather, like maybe in Brazil, and the famous story when we are kids is Snow White, but we never seen Snow White. We don't have it at all. But this is the kind of narrative they try to impose it on us. The idea of religion always was there, and it was, you see the 3 Gs with the Portuguese. We say God, gold, and glory. So religion was used during the colonial period. So to Christianize or to baptize these infidel people in Africa or in the global south. One of the famous saying by Desmond Tutu, who received the Archbishop, the very close friend of Nelson Mandela, and who shared the Nobel Peace Prize with him. He has a say. He said, when the missionaries, when they came to us, we had the land and they had the Bible. Okay? They gave us the Bible and they asked him, close your eyes and pray. When we opened our eyes, we got the Bible and they got the land. So they stole the land. So always religion be used in order to achieve some political and geopolitical purposes. Even in the post-colonial period, you have, I have a good piece in English, religion as security threat. So how to use religion itself and to become a threat, not a way in order to make peace. That all religion should be tools of peace building, but how it comes, you can see this in not only Islamic activism, but also in extremist Christian movements like the Lord Army in Uganda, the anti-Balaka in Central Africa, for example. So religion is there, whether you are talking about the colonial period or the post-colonial one. Last example is Zambia. You see, most of countries in Africa, they adopted a secular state. But when you have Zambia, they came and said, Zambia is a Christian nation. So the only country that they put in the constitution Christianity as the official, religion of the state is Zambia. Zambia as a Christian. So the idea of religion and politics in Africa is debatable, either from the colonial period or in the post-colonial one. My friend, the last one is about, I always say, new sanctuaries. Thomas Sankara. This is equally, we call it Che Guevara of Africa. Che Guevara. I have a book by this name, Che Guevara of Africa, the rule of Thomas Sankara, who came to power. He's a revolutionary in the 80s in Burkina Faso. And he is the one who changed the name of Burkina Faso, which is a land of owners. The people of Burkina Faso used to be something else. So when you have, again, the image of the French and the Western presence in Africa, very negatively, you have some regime exploited this popular uprising in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in the Sahel, in Niger, recently even in Gabon. So all these countries. These junta came to power with the support of these popular movements. But is it a kind of real revolutionary or a self-interest military group who wanted to maintain power? I think that is the thin line between the true revolutionary movement like Thomas Sankara or the other founding father in Africa, or the current military elite in the Sahel, who came with a new alliance. We call it the Sahel Alliance, the new Sahel Alliance, and allies itself with Russia. This is the idea. So instead of France, this is what I said in my presentation, you got a new master. You got Russia instead of France. So, but what is good here, that the people realize that France is not a true friend to Africa. So what they did is they helped them, they provided assistance to corrupted elite, and they never happened in any progress or sustainable development in Africa. This is one of the complexity of the situation in Africa. When it comes to the Belt and Road Initiative, we have a geopolitical war in Africa. We call it the corridor war. So you have Lobito corridor with the border gate based on the American and the European Union. When you try to connect Angola, DRC, and Zambia, where you have the cobalt belt, what is it? Nahas.
Luanda,
What?
Luanda, you mean in Angola?
In Angola,
The area.
This mineral, so mineral resources, and instead of going with the belt road to Rome, copper, yes, the copper belt. Thank you very much. I'm not a native English speaker. So
Not me.
not like you. Okay. It used to go through the Belt Road to Tanzania, in order to go to China. Now they try to have another corridor, the Lobito corridor in Zambia, in order to go to the Atlantic into the Western country. So there is a competition between United States and China, trying who is going to win Africa in their side. So we are in the middle of a new scramble for Africa, like all the scrambles.
Thank you. Maybe we move to a second round of questions. Any more questions? No?
You can ask me questions.
Can I ask in Portuguese and translate? Julia again?
Sorry. Because I'm not from international relations, I'm just moved to this side of the field. I'm from law school, so I have a lot of questions.
Not for philosophy?
Sorry?
No.
Law. I come from law school to international
In our tradition, we have law. So the political science in the College of Law. So it is part. So we study international law. We study law, introduction to law. This is in my country. Maybe you have the same tradition.
No.
No?
She was a law degree student, and now she's a master's degree in international relations.
Oh, that you combine two important disciplines.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I think that's why I have kind of many questions. So I was thinking as stated before, China has been making this strong move towards the global south, the new Silk Road, as you stated. And as a response, we also see U.S. forming some kind of alliance with China, with China's growth and influence. And I would like to know, how do you see African countries playing this game between China and the U.S.? I think some part of my brain thinks a little bit of our foreign policy during the Second World War, where we have seen Brazil sometimes stand to one side and sometimes to others to take advantage of some things we could achieve with both sides. How do you see Africa in this matter?
This is a difficult time for Africa. I'm not going to say it's easy. Many countries found themselves trapped between U.S. and China, and based on Trump policy, he is going to penalize, to punish those who are, misuse American aid. I think the first country being penalized is South Africa. So, because South Africa is very active in BRICS, in the group of 20 also, and trying to have the voice of Africa here in the international arena. Also, it's one of the two possible member in the United Nations Security Council member. If they accept the enlargement with two members. So South Africa would be naturally one of them. With India in 2023, a group of 20 meeting in India, they accepted Africa as a new member of the group of 20. For all of that, Trump sees the current government of Africa is antagonistic, so it is not in favor of the United States. So these countries, if you look at other countries, than the United States, like Ethiopia, for example. Agua is important for the textile industry for Ethiopia. So they need to please the United States, and at the same time, they are a new member of BRICS. So how to keep the balance? I think this is a kind of challenge for the African countries in order to have their collective negotiating power, either within BRICS or within the African Union, in order to face both China and the United States. Based on the new Trumpism, they are always prefer to have unilateral agreement or bilateral agreements. I'm sorry, bilateral agreement, not a collective. So how to avoid this is to go to the other strategy, work as within the group of allies, regional powers, in order to strengthen your negotiating power. But when you negotiate as an individual state, I think you are very risky.
Yeah. May I ask something? Has Elon Musk influence on Trump something to do with South Africa's punishment? Because he's a white South African.
He's a South African.
Yeah.
You have in South Africa a very rightist group, but
Yeah.
not a mainstream. Because you have a coalition now, we have a coalition in South Africa with the ANC, with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, but that group
But no.
has not voted with the ANC last week.
But you have different ideologies.
Yeah.
But this is actually a success story in South Africa. So when you have this, you could survive even with this setback with the ANC, and you accept the result. You are in the power, and you accept the result of the election.
Yes.
And you go with your enemy, and you have a coalition. And I'm sure that they don't have agreement in ideology, but this is political
Pragmatism.
pragmatism. Yes. Elon Musk, I think, is diminishing even inside the United States. He's not going to last.
Hope so.
Yeah.
So, are there any more questions? No. So, would you guys want to deliver some last comments, or?
No, some small comments. One of the words for the future could be diversification. That's like India's foreign policy. That just goes to China, to the States, and just see where to find allies in different circumstances. And the other interesting thing, I have some doubts whether there is, in the case of Africa and China, the debt trap that is very much connected with corruption of elites corruption, much more what the normal citizen or social movements are aware of. So the elites in Africa are negotiating with China without any bottom-up information, and that's a big problem, even for African unity, or for because the corruption is something that, in the case of Angola, maybe, for example, the Chinese disembarkment in Africa, their job is quite strong. So I'm just some doubts about whether things could work as we would desire to.
If I would say something for you as young generation, you are the future. And if you look at the demographic structure in Africa or in the global south, most of the population are under 25. So the young generation, I think they will carry the message. From my experience, my advice is you need to have an open mind and to be self-critical. Don't have to believe in any single narrative or any single approach. So there is always pros and cons in everything. You have advantage and disadvantage. So this is what I did all my life. So you are from Latin America, you are Brazil, so you are biased by nature towards Brazil. So I found myself in Middle Eastern Islamic society with a lot of hopes and some metaphysics. No, I've been self-critic to all of these and think out of the box and try to understand. Because what we need, all of us, is the power of understanding. Do we understand this in the right way or not? But if you are thinking in a dogmatic way, you believe in only one narrative, so you are not going to understand anything. You are trapped in your narrow-minded mindset. So I think we need to avoid this. Even your own, you have to rethink about everything in order to reach the truth. This is my advice. Thank you.
So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to welcome you for the second time. Please come in the future, in the near future. Gladys as well, thank you so much for joining us. You are always welcome. You're part of our team already. Right? So, and thank you, audience, for being here today with us, and especially Professor Paulo for helping us out and bringing the students. And see you next time.